Mesa Public Schools had a policy in place on the regalia that could be worn on the cap and gown of students graduating in the public school system in Mesa. Part of it was that students going into the National Guard were not allowed to wear the stoles or any of the of anything that identified that they were going into the National Guard. People like Rachel Walden and students rose up and said this is unfair. And then the superintendent of public schools got involved as well and asked them to rescind and change their policy. Mesa Public Schools has changed that policy. So that's the setup. Joining us to talk about this is the superintendent of public instruction, Tom Horne. Mr. Horne, once again, thanks for coming on the show.
Hi, Mike. It's always great to be on your program.
So let's talk about this. It's not the biggest thing that's happening in education, but let's face it, this is a huge day in the lives of these graduates and the families and the friends that come to see them graduate. So in a sense, it is very important that they're able to represent what they want as they walk that stage, correct?
Well, it's very important to me because I believe these students who are going into the military, could be taking big risks. They could end up in combat and they'd be risking their lives for us, for our country, and for our liberty. And we should be thanking them. We should be extremely grateful to them. We should be honoring them. And to tell them they can't wear their insignia of being in the military at graduation, I think makes not only no sense, but it's really contrary to the way we should be treating these students who are making a magnificent decision for our country and for our liberty. So that's why I intervened.
Well, so what was the mindset and the reasoning from Mesa Public Schools to deny this in the first place? Was there any ever explanation given to you?
No, I didn't get any explanation. I just the family called me and asked me to see what I could do, and I issued a press release, and Mesa changed its mind.
Well, it's good. I think that little bit of public pressure may have worked. And I look at this ceremony and I think, this is a culmination of at least 13 years worth of work for these families, for the students and for their families, that night of celebration should be all about the students and who they are and where they come from. And I think part of that, you're right, the honor of serving your country, but honoring them for making such a courageous decision is an important thing. And I think it adds to that night. I think it's a representation of who these students are. And I think it was a great decision by Mesa.
Yes, and I would limit that to military. I understand the schools don't want to have all kinds of different clothing, at the time of graduation, but I think the military should be an exception because we owe them so much.
Yeah, I have a little different opinion. I don't mind. If it were me, I would let the kids do whatever they want. If they want to decorate the cap and gown, it wouldn't matter to me. But I get it. I understand that you want to make sure it's not getting out of control. If you don't mind, I'd like to ask a couple of questions about some other issues that are serious in education. Let's shift to the ESAs, if you don't mind, because there was the court decision today, the Supreme Court, with the deadlock at 4-4, that the state of Oklahoma cannot open a religious charter school. Is there going to be challenges to ESA in Arizona where ESA dollars are going to religious school tuition?
Well, the exceptions that the courts have made for an ESA program as opposed to a program that subsidizes schools directly is that the money is not going to the school, it's going to the parents. And so, the Arizona Constitution has a provision that says that the government cannot subsidize religious schools, but the courts have held that the ESA is not bound by that because the money is for the parents, not for the schools.
All right, so then it looks like that at least that challenge wouldn't be successful. And the ESA program, I know there's been some questions in your office about the handbook and about what's going to be allowable expenditures. Has that been resolved? Are the parents satisfied, and has that been resolved yet?
Well, I've been negotiating with people at the legislature that were concerned, and I expect we'll have an agreement soon that be acceptable to everybody. Except the ultimate extremists, and this is the disagreement between them and me. Their position is whatever the parents ask for, we should pay. Contrary to my administration, which I have two principles. Number one, it has to be a valid education expense, and number two, it has to be reasonable cost according to market prices. Now, if my adversaries had their way, and I had to pay whatever the parents asked for, as long as there was money in their account to cover it, These are some of the examples of what I would have had to have paid: a $5,000 Rolex watch, a $24,000 golf simulator, a over $1,000 fancy Mont Blanc pen, and believe it or not, somebody actually asked for a vasectomy testing kit, which obviously was not for the kids. So I think their position, you can see how ridiculous their position is. We have to be able to apply those two principles. Number one, it has to be a valid education expense. Number two, it has to be reasonable cost according to market prices. And I think this is a duty that would fall on anyone who administers taxpayer funds, as I'm doing.
And I know that the next question is out of your control, but I'd like to know what the position is, your position as superintendent. The Isaac School District has shown people that there are some financial difficulties in some school districts, and they were in big trouble, and it looks as if there was some grant paperwork that wasn't filled out properly. Isn't that on the shoulders of the school board and the superintendent to make sure that that paperwork is filled out properly? And is there anything that the voters or the taxpayers in Arizona can do to assure there's questions about how Tolleson is spending money? There's a lot of parents rising up in Tolleson School District about the expenditures there by the school board. What do parents need to know, or what needs to happen to ensure that when our tax dollars are going to these school boards and these districts, that the districts are spending the money wisely?
Yes, well, I served 24 years on a school board, so I have a lot of experience. And I will tell you that education finance is complicated, and the key is to get a finance director who is good at what he's doing and who's honest. School board members, even though they're ultimately responsible, they're not going to be able to get into the minutia of the finances. The big job they have to do is get a very good finance director who knows the rules and is honest enough to follow them. As you know, we have some districts that we have warning signs on, but nothing remotely like Isaac. Isaac is a one of a kind. We've never seen anything like it. It's just very unique in the history of Arizona public education.
And is there, I appreciate what you're saying about making sure you have the right person in place, but how do you ensure, how do parents ensure that that's happening in their district so that you don't have, as rare as it is, that you don't have that happen again where you're millions of dollars in debt and it seems like nobody knows it until it's far too late?
Yeah, they can inquire about the finance director that is hired. What are the qualifications? What's the evidence that he's honest or she? Those would be I think the best inquiries, because the finances are so complicated that if you have somebody who's dishonest, which apparently we had in this case, they move money between different accounts and they can hide what they're doing. So the key is to have an honest and capable finance director.
So the last question, Mr. Horne, and I appreciate all of your time, is about the next school year, because this school year is wrapping up. We'll be looking forward very quickly to the next school year. Do you anticipate improvement in reading and math scores for the elementary school children, 3rd and 8th grade for reading and math? Do you believe that we are on the right path, that we are going to start seeing significant improvement and get kids back on track?
Yes, it takes time, but we're doing a lot. We have 15 initiatives to improve academic performance, to help the schools improve academic performance. We're a service organization. We're helping the schools, and I'm personally involved in every one. So I'm quite busy with that, and we have had some successes so far in limited areas. For example, we have solutions teams who go out to help, highly qualified teachers and administrators who go out to help schools. And that group focused as one of their experiments on the bottom 5% of schools, about 90-some schools. And after we got done helping them, 70% of those schools were no longer in the bottom 5%. So we demonstrated that kids from poor backgrounds can learn just as well as kids from rich backgrounds if they're taught properly. Another example of that was we adopted the 5th grade of a school in a poor district, and people from my department went there every week to help the teachers teach and do some teaching themselves. and we raised their math scores 27%.
Wow.
So kids from any background can learn just as well. They just have to be taught properly, and we're trying to give leadership and help so the schools will do that.
Well, sir, it's always a pleasure. I appreciate the time today, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you, Mike. Have me anytime you want. I love being on your program.
All right, that is Superintendent of Public Instruction Tom Horne spending a few moments.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Tap to watch and listen to the new season of Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast. You can also click the button in the middle to subscribe.